The accidental embrace, the crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble floor of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel as Sophia Rivers carefully balanced 3 champagne glasses on her silver tray. Her black server uniform felt scratchy against her skin, and her feet already ached from 4 hours of weaving through New York's elite. At 24, she had perfected the art of being invisible while serving the wealthy. But tonight felt different somehow. Charity auction was in full swing, with bids reaching astronomical amounts for pieces of art that Sophia could only dream of creating. She watched from the sidelines as women in designer gowns worth more than her yearly rent laughed melodiously while their husbands discussed mergers and acquisitions over aged whiskey. "Table 7 needs refills," barked Margaret, the head server, appearing beside Sophia with military precision. "And try not to spill anything tonight. These people tip based on performance." Sophia nodded, adjusting her grip on the tray as she navigated toward the designated table. The ballroom was a maze of elegantly dressed guests, their conversations a symphony of privilege and power. She had learned to tune out most of it, but fragments still reached her ears. "Did you hear about the Blackstone merger? Damian's really outdone himself this time. That boy is going to revolutionize everything." As she approached table 7, Sophia noticed a commotion near the auction stage. A tall figure in an impeccably tailored black tuxedo was striding through the crowd with purpose, his dark hair catching the light as he moved. Even from a distance, there was something magnetic about him, something that made conversations pause as he passed. That's when disaster struck. A waiter rushing past bumped into Sophia's shoulder, sending her carefully balanced tray tilting dangerously. She lunged forward, trying to save the champagne glasses, but physics had other plans. The tray slipped from her fingers, and she found herself stumbling directly into the path of the mysterious man in the tuxedo. The collision was spectacular. Sophia crashed into a solid chest with enough force to knock the breath from her lungs. Instinctively, her arms wrapped around his neck to steady herself, while his hands automatically came up to catch her waist. For a moment, they were frozen in what looked like an intimate embrace, her face inches from his, time seemingly suspended. Camera flashes exploded around them like fireworks. The auction hall fell silent, except for the rapid clicking of professional cameras and the whispered gasps of onlookers. Sophia found herself staring into the most intense pair of steel-gray eyes she had ever seen, framed by dark lashes and set in a face that belonged on magazine covers. "Oh no," she whispered, realizing the magnitude of what had just happened. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to." "Don't move," he said quietly, his voice low and commanding. There was something in his tone that made her freeze, even as her logical mind screamed at her to extract herself from this embarrassing situation. The man holding her had the kind of presence that commanded attention without effort. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass, dark hair perfectly styled despite their collision. And there was an intensity in his gaze that made her stomach flutter nervously. He was devastatingly handsome in the way that only came from excellent genetics and unlimited resources. "Sir, are you all right?" A security guard appeared beside them, looking concerned. "We're fine," the man replied smoothly, still not releasing Sophia from his arms. His eyes never left her face, studying her with an intensity that made her cheeks burn. "Mr. Blackstone, the photographers, I can see that," he interrupted. Sophia's eyes widened as she realized exactly who she had just crashed into. Damian Blackstone, the tech billionaire whose face graced the covers of Forbes and Time magazine. The man who had revolutionized artificial intelligence and was rumored to be worth more than some small countries. "You're him," she breathed. "You're Damian Blackstone." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "And you are Sophia Rivers. And I'm about to be fired for assaulting you with champagne glasses. Are you now?" His smile became more pronounced. "That would be unfortunate." The cameras continued flashing around them, and Sophia became acutely aware that they were still locked in their accidental embrace. Every society photographer in New York was capturing this moment, and she could already imagine the headlines. She tried to step back, but his hands tightened slightly on her waist. "Mr. Blackstone," she said urgently, "people are staring." "Let them stare," he replied calmly. "Tell me, Sophia Rivers, What do you do when you're not crashing into billionaires? The question was so unexpected that she almost laughed. Here she was, mortified and expecting to be escorted out by security, and he was making conversation, as if they were at a casual coffee shop instead of the center of a media frenzy. I'm an artist, she said honestly, or trying to be. Right now, I'm mostly a server who apparently can't handle a simple tray of champagne. An artist, he repeated thoughtfully. What kind? Paintings mostly. I work with oils and acrylics. Nothing fancy or expensive, just honest work. Something flickered in his gray eyes at her words. Before he could respond, a sharp voice cut through the air like a blade. Damian, darling, what on earth is happening here? Stunning blonde woman, in a silver gown that probably cost more than Sophia's car, approached them with predatory grace. Her blue eyes were as cold as they assessed the situation, taking in every detail of Sophia's server uniform and their intimate positioning. Victoria, Damian said, his voice noticeably cooler. Just a small accident. Victoria Sterling, Sophia, realized with growing dread. She recognized the woman from newspaper society pages and business magazines. Victoria was everything Sophia wasn't, polished, sophisticated, and born into the kind of wealth that opened every door. An accident? Victoria repeated, her gaze raking over Sophia dismissively. How quaint. Shouldn't you be working, dear? The condescension in Victoria's voice made Sophia's spine stiffen. She had dealt with entitled customers before. But something about Victoria's tone ignited a spark of defiance she usually kept carefully controlled. I was working, Sophia replied evenly. I accidentally discovered that even billionaires can be surprisingly steady on their feet. Damian's eyes lit up with something that might have been admiration, while Victoria's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose dangerously high. How amusing, Victoria said, though her tone suggested she found nothing amusing about the situation. Damian, we really should get back to the auction. The Patterson collection is coming up next. In a moment, Damian replied, still not releasing Sophia. I'm finding this conversation rather enlightening. The tension between Damian and Victoria was palpable. Sophia suddenly felt like she was caught in the middle of something much larger than a simple accident. The way Victoria looked at Damian suggested a history, while his reluctance to engage with her indicated complications Sophia didn't understand. Mr. Blackstone, Sophia said quietly, I really should get back to work. My supervisor is probably having a heart attack right now? She glanced toward the service station where Margaret was indeed standing with her mouth agape, staring at the spectacle unfolding in the middle of the ballroom. Actually, Damian said, a calculating look entering his eyes, I have a better idea. Before Sophia could ask what he meant, he turned to address the crowd of photographers and onlookers who had gathered around them. Ladies and gentlemen, Damian announced, his voice carrying easily across the hushed ballroom. I'd like you to meet Sophia Rivers, my girlfriend. The proposition, the words, hit Sophia like a physical blow. Mouth fell open as cameras exploded in another frenzy of flashing lights. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like wildfire, and she could see reporters frantically typing on their phones. What? She whispered, staring at him in shock. Victoria's face had gone pale beneath her expertly applied makeup. Damian, what are you doing? Introducing my girlfriend to society, he replied smoothly, pulling Sophia closer to his side. We've been keeping things quiet, but I think it's time to go public. Sophia's mind reeled. This had to be some kind of fever dream. 20 minutes ago, she had been an anonymous server worried about rent money and art supplies. She was apparently dating one of the most powerful men in the world, and half of New York's elite was documenting the moment. But she started to protest, but Damian's hand found hers, squeezing gently in what she interpreted as a warning to play along. We met at a gallery showing. Damian continued improvising, with the confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Sophia's work is extraordinary. She has a unique perspective on modern urban landscapes. The lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly that Sophia almost believed it herself. The crowd was eating it up, photographers jockeying for better angles, while society reporters scribbled notes furiously. How romantic, Victoria said through gritted teeth. A real Cinderella story, Damian replied, his arm tightening around Sophia's waist. Sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most unexpected places. Sophia looked up at him, trying to understand what game he was playing and why he had suddenly decided to make her a player in it. His gray eyes met hers, and for a moment, she saw something vulnerable beneath the confident exterior. Whatever his reasons, he needed this charade, and despite her confusion, she found herself unwilling to expose him in front of this crowd. "The auction is resuming," announced the evening's host over the microphone. "If everyone could please return to their seats." As the crowd began to disperse, still buzzing with excitement over the unexpected revelation, Victoria stepped closer. "We need to talk, Damian," she said quietly, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Privately." "Of course," Damian replied pleasantly. "Sophia and I were just leaving anyway." "This has been quite enough excitement for one evening." Sophia found herself being gently but firmly guided toward the exit, her head spinning from the rapid turn of events. As they walked, she caught glimpses of people pointing and whispering, phones being held up to capture their departure. "Mr. Blackstone," she said urgently once they were out of earshot of the main crowd, "what just happened in there? You told everyone I was your girlfriend." They reached the hotel lobby, which was mercifully quieter than the ballroom. Damian finally released her arm, but remained close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne. "Call me Damian," he said, "and what happened was that you just saved me from a very complicated situation." "What kind of situation?" Damian ran a hand through his dark hair, the first sign of stress she had seen from him. "Victoria and I have a history. Our families have been trying to arrange a merger that would include a personal alliance. Tonight was supposed to be an informal announcement of our engagement." Sophia's eyes widened. "Your engagement to her?" "Was supposed to be," he corrected. "But I've been avoiding making any formal commitment. Your timely collision provided the perfect excuse to derail those plans." "So you decided to make me your fake girlfriend without asking?" Sophia's voice rose slightly with indignation. "I apologize for the surprise," Damian said, though he didn't look particularly sorry, "but you did crash into me first. I simply made the best of an unexpected opportunity." Sophia stared at him, torn between admiration for his quick thinking and outrage at being used as a pawn in his corporate chess game. "This is insane. When those photos hit the internet tomorrow, my life is going to be turned upside down." "Probably," Damian agreed, "which is why I'd like to make you an offer." "An offer? Have dinner with me tomorrow night?" "Let me explain the situation properly, and perhaps we can work out an arrangement that benefits both of us." Sophia studied his face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. What she found instead was intelligence, determination, and something that might have been genuine interest. "What kind of arrangement?" she asked carefully. "The kind that could solve both of our problems," Damian replied. "You mentioned you're a struggling artist, and I need a convincing girlfriend to avoid an unwanted marriage alliance. Perhaps we can help each other." Before Sophia could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. "Get back here now. Mr. Davidson wants to see you." "I have to go," she said, showing him the message. "My supervisor is probably firing me as we speak." "Let me handle that," Damian said, pulling out his own phone. "What's your supervisor's name?" "Margaret Klein." "But really, you don't have to." Damian was already dialing. "Mr. Davidson? This is Damian Blackstone. I understand you have an employee named Sophia Rivers working tonight's event. She just rendered me a considerable service, and I'd like to ensure she's properly recognized for her professionalism." Sophia watched in amazement as Damian smoothly transformed what should have been her termination into some kind of commendation. When he hung up, he was smiling. "Problem solved. You're getting a raise and a recommendation for the company's premium events roster." "How did you money talks?" Damian said simply. "And I have a lot of it." Sophia shook her head in bewilderment. "This is all happening too fast. I need time to think, of course." Damian reached into his jacket and withdrew a business card. "My personal number is on the back. Call me tomorrow, and we'll discuss everything properly." As he handed her the card, their fingers brushed, and Sophia felt an unexpected jolt of electricity. For a moment, their eyes met and held, and she wondered if he had felt it too. "Sophia," he said quietly, "I know this seems overwhelming, but I promise you, I'm not the villain in this story." "Then who is?" she asked. Damian's expression darkened slightly as he glanced back toward the ballroom where Victoria was likely still holding court. "That remains to be seen." As Damian walked away, his expensive shoes clicking on the marble floor, Sophia clutched his business card and tried to process everything that had just happened. In the span of 30 minutes, she had gone from invisible server to the alleged girlfriend of one of America's most eligible bachelors. Her phone buzzed again, this time with notifications from social media apps she rarely used. Her heart sank as she realized the photos were already online, spreading across the internet at viral speed. "Sophia Rivers," she whispered to herself, "what have you gotten yourself into?" But as she looked at Damian's retreating figure, confident and commanding, even in the face of chaos, she couldn't deny the thrill of excitement coursing through her veins. For the first time in years, something truly unexpected had happened in her carefully ordered, financially stressed life. Tomorrow, she would have to decide whether to answer his call and step into a world she had never imagined, or return to her easel and paintbrushes and pretend that tonight had been nothing more than an extraordinary dream. The choice was hers. But as she walked toward the service elevator, Sophia already knew what her answer would be. The morning after, Sophia woke to the sound of her phone buzzing incessantly on her nightstand. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of her studio apartment, illuminating the canvases stacked against the walls and the unmade bed where she lay, trying to convince herself that last night had been an elaborate dream. The buzzing continued. With a groan, she reached for her phone and immediately wished she hadn't. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and notifications from every social media platform she had ever signed up for. The top message was from her best friend, Grace Thompson, sent at 6 in the morning. "Sophia Marie Rivers, call me. Right now, you're on the front page of the New York Post." Her stomach dropped as she opened her news app. There it was. In bold headlines, tech titan's secret love billionaire Damian Blackstone goes public with mystery girlfriend. Below the headline was a photo of her wrapped in Damian's arms, looking for all the world like a woman desperately in love. She looked beautiful in the photo, she had to admit. The professional lighting had caught the golden highlights in her brown hair, and her green eyes seemed to sparkle with joy rather than panic. Damian looked equally smitten, gazing down at her with an expression of tender affection that seemed remarkably genuine for something completely fabricated. Before she could read the article, her phone rang. Damian's name flashed on the screen. "Hello," she answered hesitantly. "Good morning, beautiful." His warm voice filled her ear. "I trust you've seen the morning papers. I'm currently staring at a photo of myself that's been viewed by half the internet," Sophia replied, pulling her knees up to her chest. "This is surreal. Welcome to my world," Damian said with a chuckle. "How are you handling the attention?" "Haven't left my apartment yet," she admitted. "I'm afraid to look outside." Smart. Instinct. "There are probably photographers camped outside your building by now. I'm sending a car to pick you up in an hour." "A car?" "Where are we going, brunch?" Damian said simply. "My penthouse."
Ow.
"We need to discuss our situation properly, and I'd prefer to do it somewhere private." Sophia hesitated.
Ow.
"Damian, I've been thinking about this all night. We should just tell everyone the truth. Explain that it was a misunderstanding." "We could," he agreed. "But that would be a waste of a perfectly good opportunity." "Opportunity for what?" "Come to brunch and find out. The car will be there at 10. Before she could protest, he hung up, leaving Sophia staring at her phone in frustration. Everything about Damian Blackstone was overwhelming, from his commanding presence to his casual assumption that she would simply fall in line with his plans. She scrolled through the news article, her anxiety mounting with each paragraph. The story painted them as a secret romance between a tech mogul and a mysterious artist, complete with speculation about how they met and when they might announce their engagement. The comments section was a mix of congratulations and harsh criticism, with some people questioning what a billionaire could possibly see in a nobody like her. Her phone rang again. This time, it was Grace. "Sophia. Oh my God, I can't believe you didn't tell me you were dating Damian Blackstone. When did this happen? How long have you been seeing him? Are you okay?" "The photos are everywhere." "Grace, slow down," Sophia said. rubbing her temples. "It's not what it looks like." "What do you mean? You two look completely smitten in every photo. There are like 20 different angles of you wrapped in his arms. It's complicated. I can't really explain right now, but it's not a real relationship." "Are you saying this is some kind of publicity stunt?" "I'm saying I need to figure out what's happening before I can explain it to anyone else." Grace was quiet for a moment. "Sophia, be careful. Men like Damian Blackstone don't play games with people unless they have something to gain. Whatever this is, make sure you're protecting yourself." After Grace hung up, Sophia stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were puffy from lack of sleep. Now she looked nothing like the glamorous woman in the newspaper photos. Yet somehow Damian Blackstone had chosen her to be his fake girlfriend. She showered and dressed carefully, choosing a simple black dress that was appropriate for brunch but wouldn't look out of place in a billionaire's penthouse. As she applied makeup, she tried to imagine what Damian's offer might entail and whether she was brave enough to accept it. At exactly 10 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled up outside her building. The driver, a professionally dressed man in his 50s, introduced himself as James and treated her with the kind of deference usually reserved for actual girlfriends of billionaires. "Mr. Blackstone asked me to give you this," James said, handing her a newspaper. "He thought you might want to see the other coverage." Sophia's heart sank as she flipped through the paper. The story had made national news, with headlines ranging from romantic to skeptical. One tabloid had already dug up her background, revealing her struggles as an artist and her part-time job serving at high-end events. Another had found her college roommate, who had apparently told them that Sophia always dreamed of finding her prince charming. The ride to Damian's penthouse took her through Manhattan's most exclusive neighborhoods. She gazed out the window at the luxury boutiques and expensive restaurants, wondering if this was about to become her world, or if she was just visiting for the day. The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a gleaming glass tower. When the elevator doors opened, Sophia stepped into a space that looked like it belonged in an architecture magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of Central Park, and the furniture was a perfect blend of modern elegance and comfortable luxury. Damian was waiting for her in the living room, dressed casually in dark jeans and a white button-down shirt. He looked relaxed and impossibly handsome, as if having his fake girlfriend splashed across the front page of every newspaper in the city was just another Tuesday morning. "You look beautiful," he said, standing to greet her. "Hope the photographers didn't give you too much trouble." "They were surprisingly persistent," Sophia replied, accepting the glass of orange juice he offered. "One of them followed me to the coffee shop on the corner." "That's going to be your new reality if you agree to my proposal," Damian said, gesturing for her to sit on the plush sofa. "Are you prepared for that?" "I don't know what I'm prepared for," Sophia admitted. "This is all so far outside my normal experience." Damian sat across from her, his expression serious. "Let me be completely honest with you about what I'm offering. I need someone to play the role of my girlfriend for the next 6 months. The relationship needs to be convincing enough to satisfy the media and my family, but it would be strictly business." 6 months? Sophia's voice cracked slightly. "That's not exactly a short-term commitment." "Victoria's engagement announcement was scheduled for Christmas," Damian explained. 6 months gives me enough time to solidify some business deals and restructure my company in a way that makes the merger unnecessary. By then, we can stage a quiet breakup, and you'll be free to return to your normal life." "And what do I get out of this arrangement?" Damian leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. $1 million, plus a furnished apartment in a building. I own a clothing allowance, and access to the art world connections that could launch your career." Sophia nearly choked on her orange juice. $1 million? For 6 months of your time? You'd need to attend public events with me, be photographed looking happy and in love, and convince my family and friends that our relationship is real. In return, you get financial security and the chance to focus on your art without worrying about rent or groceries. The offer was staggering, almost too good to be true, but Sophia had learned that nothing in life came without a price. "What's the catch?" she asked. "The catch is that once we're in this, there's no backing out. The media. Attention will be intense, and some people will try to tear you down. You'll need to be strong enough to handle that." "What about you?" Sophia asked. Why should I trust that you'll hold up your end of the bargain? Damian reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded document, because I've already had my lawyers draft a contract. Everything we've discussed is in writing, including a clause that protects you if I breach our agreement. Sophia stared at the contract, her mind racing. 6 months ago, she had been struggling to pay for art supplies. Now she was being offered a chance to change her life completely. I need to think about this, she said finally. Of course, Damian replied. But I should mention that Victoria is already making moves to discredit you. She's been calling reporters, trying to plant stories about your background. If you're going to do this, it would be better to get ahead of the narrative. Sophia felt a chill run down her spine. What kind of stories? Nothing too damaging yet, but she's persistent. The sooner we make this official, the better I can protect you. As if on cue, Sophia's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We know about your student loans and your father's gambling debts. Call us for comment. Damian saw her expression change. They're already digging into your personal life. I can make that stop, but only if you're officially under my protection. Sophia looked around the penthouse, then at the contract in her hands, then at Damian's face. He was watching her with an intensity that made her stomach flutter, and she realized that somewhere beneath his calculated business proposal was a man who needed her help just as much as she needed his. If I say yes, she said slowly. When do we start? Right now, Damian replied. I have a charity luncheon this afternoon, and it would be the perfect place to make our first official public appearance as a couple. Sophia took a deep breath, thinking about Grace's warning and her own instincts. But she also thought about her empty bank account, her student loans, and the stack of rejection letters from art galleries that sat on her desk. I'll do it, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. But I want to read that contract very carefully first. Damian smiled, and for the first time since she'd met him, it looked completely genuine. I wouldn't expect anything less. Playing the part 3 weeks into their arrangement, Sophia was beginning to understand why Damian had become so successful. He approached their fake relationship with the same strategic precision he brought to business deals, planning every public appearance and coaching her on how to handle the media attention. The charity luncheon had been a success, with photos of them looking deeply in love splashed across social media within hours. Since then, they had attended 2 gallery openings, a Broadway premiere, a high-profile fundraiser for children's hospitals. Each event had been carefully choreographed to build their public narrative while giving Sophia exposure to the art. World connections Damian had promised. Now, she sat in the passenger seat of his Aston Martin, heading to dinner at his parents' estate in the Hamptons. Sophia realized the hardest part wasn't the photographers or the social media scrutiny. It was pretending not to be affected by Damian himself. Remember, Damian said as they pulled through the gates of the sprawling waterfront property, my mother will try to corner you for a private conversation. She's protective but not malicious. Just be yourself, and your father will be more interested in your thoughts on the art market than your relationship with me. He's been collecting for 30 years and considers himself an expert. Sophia smoothed her dress nervously. After weeks of shopping with the stylist Damian had hired, she had grown accustomed to wearing designer clothes, but tonight felt different. Meeting his family would make their charade feel more real, more personal. Are you sure about this? She asked. Lying to your parents feels different from lying to photographers. My parents have been pushing me toward Victoria for years. They think she's the perfect match because her family's pharmaceutical company would complement our tech empire. They need to see that I'm capable of making my own choices. But you're not actually making a choice, Sophia pointed out. You're just buying time. Sometimes that's the same thing. The Blackstone family estate was breathtaking, a sprawling Georgian mansion that had been in the family for 3 generations. As they walked up the stone steps, Damian took her hand, and Sophia felt the now familiar jolt of electricity that passed between them whenever they touched. Just remember, he said quietly, we're madly in love. Eleanor Blackstone was exactly what Sophia had expected, elegant, sharp-eyed, and impossible to fool. She greeted them at the door with the kind of smile that seemed warm but revealed nothing about her true thoughts. Sophia, dear, she said, kissing both of her cheeks. How wonderful to finally meet you. Damian has told us so much about you. You for having me, Mrs. Blackstone. Your home is beautiful. Please call me Eleanor. Come let me show you the garden before dinner. As they walked through the perfectly manicured grounds, Eleanor peppered Sophia with questions about her art, her family, and her relationship with Damian. Sophia had rehearsed answers to most of them, but Eleanor's probing was more sophisticated than she had anticipated. You know, Eleanor said as they paused beside a fountain, I've been married for 32 years, and I can usually tell when two people are truly in love. There's a way they look at each other, a certain awareness. Sophia's heart skipped. What do you mean? You and Damian have it, Eleanor said with a knowing smile. I was worried this might be one of his strategic maneuvers, but I can see the way you watch each other when you think no one is looking. Before Sophia could respond, Damian appeared at her side, slipping his arm around her waist with practiced ease. Mother, are you interrogating my girlfriend? Is getting to know her? Eleanor replied innocently. She's lovely, darling. Very different from Victoria. That's the point, Damian said, his voice carrying an edge that surprised Sophia. Dinner was served in a dining room that could have housed Sophia's entire apartment. Richard Blackstone, Damian's father, was a distinguished man in his 60s who possessed the same commanding presence as his son. He spent most of the meal discussing modern art with Sophia, clearly impressed by her knowledge and passion. Are you? No, Richard said over dessert. I've been thinking about commissioning a piece for the lobby of our new Manhattan office, something that speaks to innovation and human connection. Would you be interested? Sophia nearly dropped her fork. I would be honored, Mr. Blackstone. Richard, please. I'm not offering this because you're dating my son. Your perspective on urban landscapes is genuinely intriguing. Under the table, Damian's hand found hers, squeezing gently. When she looked at him, she saw pride in his eyes that seemed entirely genuine. After dinner, they walked along the beach behind the house. The moon was full, casting silver light across the waves, and for a moment, Sophia could almost pretend. This was real. Your parents are wonderful, she said, taking off her heels to walk in the sand. They like you, Damian replied. More than I expected them to, because I'm not Victoria. Because you're you, he said, stopping to face her. You're honest and passionate and completely unimpressed by wealth or status. They've never seen me with someone like that. Something in his voice made Sophia look up at him more carefully. In the moonlight, his face was softer than usual, and there was an vulnerability in his expression that she had never seen before. Damian, she said carefully, sometimes when we're together like this, it feels real, he finished. I know. I feel it too. They stood there for a moment, the waves lapping at their feet, and Sophia felt the careful boundaries of their arrangement beginning to blur. She had been so focused on playing her part that she hadn't noticed when it stopped feeling like acting. This is dangerous, she whispered. I know, Damian replied, stepping closer, but I can't seem to help myself. Before she could think better of it, Sophia rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. It was soft and tentative at first, nothing like the calculated kisses they shared for cameras. But then his arms came around her, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt like the most natural thing in the world when they finally broke apart. Oh, both were breathing hard. That wasn't for show, Damian said, his forehead resting against hers. No, Sophia agreed. It wasn't. They drove back to the city in contemplative silence, both lost in their own thoughts about what had just happened. When they reached Sophia's apartment building, Damian walked her to the door as he always did. But this time the gesture felt charged with new meaning. Sophia, he said as she fumbled with her keys. What happened tonight I know, she interrupted, not trusting herself. To look at him. We need to be more careful, do we? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Sophia finally looked up at him, seeing her own confusion reflected in his gray eyes. Our contract says 6 months, she said quietly. What happens after that? I don't know, Damian admitted. For the first time in my life, I don't have a plan. The next morning, Sophia woke to find her phone buzzing with alerts. Her heart sank as she opened her news app. Fearing another invasion of privacy or malicious story planted by Victoria, instead, she found something much worse. The headline read, Blackstone's fake romance exposed server paid to play girlfriend. The article, published by a major gossip magazine, claimed to have inside information about their arrangement. It detailed the charity auction where they met, suggested that Damian had hired her to avoid his engagement to Victoria, and even included quotes from unnamed sources who claimed to have seen them discussing business rather than romance. Sophia's phone rang immediately. It was Damian. "Don't believe anything you read," he said without preamble. "Someone leaked information, but they don't have proof of anything." "They have enough," Sophia replied, her voice shaking. "The story is everywhere. People are calling me a gold digger and a fraud. I'm coming over. Don't talk to any reporters, don't leave your apartment, and don't let anyone into the building. Damian, maybe we should just end this now. Tell everyone they were right." "No," he said firmly. "That would destroy your reputation and mine. We're going to fight this." Within an hour, Damian was at her door with a team of crisis management specialists. They spread out across her small apartment, working phones and laptops with military efficiency. "The story came from someone close to the situation," explained Miranda Chen, the lead publicist. "Someone who had access to information about your first meeting and your financial situation." "Victoria," Sophia said immediately. "We can't prove that," Miranda replied. "But we can control the narrative. We're going to stage a press conference. Were you to make a statement about your relationship, it'll need to be completely convincing." "What kind of statement?" Sophia asked. "You're going to announce your engagement," Miranda said matter-of-factly. "Nothing kills a fake relationship. Story like a real engagement." Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. "You want us to get engaged?" "Just the announcement," Damian said quickly. "We'll plan a long engagement, and by the time we're supposed to get married, the media will have moved on to other stories."
That's
"Not what our contract says," Sophia protested. "Consider it an amendment," Damian replied. "With additional compensation, of course." Sophia looked around the room at all the professionals working to save their fake relationship, and suddenly, the whole situation felt suffocating. She had gotten so caught up in playing the part that she had forgotten it was all supposed to be temporary. "I need some air," she said, grabbing her jacket. Miranda called after her. "The reporters, I'll be back," Sophia said, and walked out before anyone could stop her. She made it 3 blocks before the photographers found her. They surrounded her like a pack of wolves, shouting questions about the engagement story and her relationship with Damian. She pushed through them, tears streaming down her face, and ducked into the first business she could find. It was a small coffee shop. It's mercifully empty except for the barista who recognized her immediately. "You're her," the young woman said. "It's Damian." "Blackstone's girlfriend?" was Sophia corrected. "I think I was his girlfriend." Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from Damian, but she ignored them all. She needed to think, to figure out what she wanted beyond the money and the security and the fairy tale that had never been real in the first place. When she finally returned to her apartment 2 hours later, she found Damian waiting alone in the hallway. His hair was disheveled, his tie loosened, and he looked more rattled than she had ever seen him. "Where were you?" he demanded. "I've been worried sick. I needed to think," Sophia replied, unlocking her door. "About all of this, and what did you decide?" Sophia turned to face him, and for the first time in weeks, she felt completely clear about what she wanted. "I'm done," she said simply. "Done pretending to be someone I'm not, and I'm done being used as a pawn in your business games." "Sophia, please, I'm going to hold a press conference tomorrow," she continued. "I'm going to tell everyone the truth about our arrangement. You can keep your money, and I'll keep my integrity." Damian stared at her for a long moment, and she saw something shift in his expression. The calculating businessman facade cracked, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. "What if I don't want you to go?" he asked quietly. "What do you mean? What if I told you that somewhere along the way this stopped being fake for me, that I've fallen in love with you, and the thought of losing you terrifies me more than any? Business deal or family obligation?" Sophia's breath caught. "Damian, I know I have no right to ask you to stay," he continued, stepping closer. "I know I've handled this all wrong from the beginning. I'm asking anyway. Don't walk away from us. Not yet." For a moment, Sophia wavered. She could see the sincerity in his eyes, hear the emotion in his voice, but she also remembered the contract, the calculation, The way he had made her part of his plan without asking. "How do I know this isn't just another strategy?" she asked. "Another way to get what you want?" Because Damian said, reaching for her hands. "What I want now is you. Not the fake relationship, not the business advantages, just you.
Well,
And I'm willing to give up everything else to prove it." The real thing. Sophia searched Damian's face, looking for any sign of deception or manipulation. What she found instead was a vulnerability she had never seen before. A man who had built his entire life on control and strategy, suddenly admitting he was willing to risk everything for something real. "Prove it," she said quietly. "How?" "Call off the press conference. Tell Miranda and your team to go home. And spend the next 24 hours with me, not as fake boyfriend and girlfriend, but as two people trying to figure out if what we feel is real." Damian nodded without hesitation. Done. He made the calls while Sophia changed out of her designer dress and into jeans and a sweater. When she emerged from her bedroom, she found him sitting on her second-hand couch, looking oddly at home in her tiny apartment. "So," she said, settling beside him, "what do we do now?" "I have no idea," Damian admitted. "I've never done anything without a plan before. Well, I'm hungry and I don't have anything fancy in my fridge. Want to go get pizza?" Damian laughed, the sound genuine and warm. "I haven't had pizza in probably 5 years. Then we're definitely getting pizza." They walked to Tony's, a tiny pizzeria 3 blocks from her apartment. The owner, an elderly Italian man, recognized Sophia immediately. "Sophia, where have you been?" "I haven't seen you in weeks. I've been busy, Tony. This is Damian." Tony looked Damian up and down, taking in his expensive clothes and polished appearance. "You're the billionaire, right? The one from the newspapers?" "That's me," Damian said, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you. You better be good to our Sophia," Tony said, shaking his hand firmly. "She's special, this one. Always tips well, even when she doesn't have much money." As they sat in a corner booth waiting for their pizza, Sophia watched Damian look around the restaurant with curiosity. It was clear he hadn't been in a place like this in years, maybe decades. "Tell me about your art," he said, focusing entirely on her. "Not the elevator pitch version you give at gallery openings, the real version." Sophia hesitated. "It's going to sound pretentious. Try me. I paint people in cities," she said slowly. "Not portraits, but the way people move through. Urban spaces. The isolation and connection that happens when you're surrounded by millions of people but still fundamentally alone. I'm fascinated by those moments when 2 strangers' eyes meet on a subway platform, or when someone finds unexpected beauty in a concrete jungle. Like when a server crashes into a billionaire at a charity auction." "Exactly like that," Sophia said, smiling. "Though I never expected to become part of one of those moments." "What made you want to be an artist?" "My grandmother," Sophia said immediately. "She was a painter, not professionally, but she had this way of seeing beauty in ordinary things. After she died, I found boxes of her paintings in the basement. Hundreds of them. Flowers from her garden, the view from her kitchen window, my grandfather reading the newspaper. She painted her whole life in these small, perfect moments. She sounds wonderful. She's also the reason I'm so afraid of settling for something fake. She used to tell me that life was too short to spend it pretending to be someone you're not." Damian was quiet for a moment. "Is that what you think you've been doing? Pretending?" I haven't we both?" "Maybe at first," Damian said. "But tonight, when we kissed on the beach, that wasn't pretending. At least not for me." Their pizza arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. Sophia watched Damian struggle with the large slice, clearly unaccustomed to eating. "Anything so casual?" "You know," she said, "for someone who's supposedly madly in love with me, you don't know how to eat pizza?" "I'm a fast learner," Damian replied, attempting to fold the slice properly. "Besides, there are probably things you don't know about me either." "Like what?" "Like the fact that I've never had a relationship that lasted longer than 3 months. Or that I collect vintage comic books. Or that I've been taking guitar lessons for 2 years, and I'm still terrible at it." Sophia laughed. "Comic books? Really?" "I have a first edition Spider-Man that's worth more than most people's cars. That's both impressive and deeply nerdy. I prefer intellectually curious." They spent the rest of the evening walking through her neighborhood, talking about everything and nothing. Damian told her about growing up with enormous expectations, about the pressure to live up to his father's success and his own ambitions. Sophia shared stories about her childhood, her struggles as an artist, and her fears about never being good enough. "I used to think success meant proving everyone wrong," Sophia said as they sat on a bench in the small park near her apartment. "But I'm starting to think it might mean proving yourself right." "What do you mean?" "I mean believing in your own worth, regardless of what other people think. I spent so much time trying to prove I belonged in galleries and auction houses that I forgot why I started painting in the first place. And why was that? Because I loved it? Because it made me feel alive? Because I had something to say about the world?" Damian turned to face her fully. "You still do? Your painting of the subway platform, the one in your apartment, it's extraordinary. It captures exactly what you just described, that moment of connection and isolation. You really looked at it." "I've looked at it every time I've been in your apartment. It's the first thing I see when I walk in." Something warm bloomed in Sophia's chest. Throughout their fake relationship, she had been so focused on playing her part that she hadn't noticed the small ways Damian had been genuinely interested in her life. "Damian," she said quietly, "what are we doing?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know I don't want it to stop." "What about Victoria? What about the merger?" "I'll figure it out. I've built my entire life around business deals and strategic alliances, but I've never been happy. Not really. These past few weeks with you, even when we were pretending, have been the most authentic I've felt in years. If the media finds out we're really together now, if they think this whole thing was just an elaborate way to get publicity, then we'll deal with it together," Damian said. "No more contracts, no more arrangements, just us, figuring it out as we go." Sophia looked at him, this man who had turned her world upside down in the span of a month. He wasn't perfect, and she wasn't sure she trusted him completely yet. But there was something in his eyes that made her want to try. "Okay," she said, "but I have conditions." "Name them." "No more lies. No more strategic thinking about our relationship. If we're going to do this, we do it honestly." "Agreed. And I want to keep my apartment. I need a space that's mine, regardless of what happens between us, of course." "Yes. And if you ever use me as a pawn in one of your business games again, I will. Walk away and never look back." "I would never promise me," Sophia interrupted. "I promise," Damian said solemnly. "Anything else?" "Yes," Sophia said, standing up and extending her hand. "I want you to come upstairs and let me show you the rest of my paintings, the ones I've never shown anyone." Damian took her hand, and they walked back to her building together. As they climbed the stairs to her apartment, Sophia felt a mixture of terror and excitement. She was about to show him the most vulnerable parts of herself, the art that revealed her deepest thoughts and fears. "These are beautiful," Damian said quietly as he moved through her apartment, really seeing her work for the first time. "One of the woman at the bus stop. It's heartbreaking." "She was waiting for someone who never came," Sophia said. "I watched her for 20 minutes before I realized she was crying." "In this one? That's the view from my fire escape at 3. In the morning, the city never really sleeps, but it gets quiet enough that you can hear your own thoughts." Damian stopped in front of her latest painting, one she hadn't finished yet. It was a crowd scene, dozens of people in formal wear, but in the center were two figures locked in an embrace. "When did you paint this?" "Last week," Sophia admitted. "After the charity auction." "I couldn't stop thinking about that moment when we collided, how it felt like the whole world stopped." "It did stop," Damian said, turning to face her, "at least for me." This time, when he kissed her, there were no cameras, no audience, no contract dictating their behavior. It was just them, standing in her small apartment surrounded by her art, discovering that sometimes the most unexpected collisions lead to the most beautiful destinations. 6 months later, Sophia stood in the main gallery of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, watching as her first solo exhibition opened to a crowd of critics, collectors, and art lovers. The series, titled Unexpected Connections, featured paintings inspired by her relationship with Damian and the way their fake romance had evolved into something real? Nervous? Damian asked, appearing at her side with 2 glasses of champagne. Terrified, Sophia admitted, but in a good way. Your grandmother would be proud, he said, and Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. I hope so. Across the room, Richard Blackstone was deep in conversation with a museum curator about purchasing one of her pieces for the corporate collection. Eleanor was holding court near the centerpiece painting, regaling a group of society ladies with stories about how she had known from the moment she met Sophia that she was perfect for her son. Any regrets? Damian asked quietly. Sophia looked around the gallery at her work hanging on the walls, at the people genuinely moved by her art, at the man beside her who had become her partner in every sense of the word. Only one, she said. What's that? Wish I had ordered a larger pizza that first night. I was still hungry when we got back to my apartment. Damian laughed, the sound rich and warm. I think we can manage better pizza next time. There's going to be a next time. There's going to be a lot of next times, Damian said, pulling her closer. If you'll have me, I'll think about it, Sophia teased, then kissed him soundly in front of the crowd as the evening wound down and the last guests filtered out of the gallery. Sophia stood alone for a moment in front of the painting that had started it all. The 2 figures in the center of the crowd were still locked in their embrace, but now she could see what she hadn't noticed when she first painted it. They weren't just holding on to each other to avoid falling, they were holding on because they had found something worth keeping. The end.